So, welcome, Kaliani, if I say right, Manju, Maria, and Nisha for the moment. So let's see if more people join us later. And I'm going to start by sharing my screen with the presentation I have. Um, just okay. Let's see if this thing works. And here I go here.
Yes, we can see.
Can you guys see my screen? All right.
Yeah.
Good. So this is a session about, we are going to be talking about service learning projects, or in general, project-based learning. And we are going to be discussing about how to create structured rubrics aligned with learning outcomes. This is going to be the core of our conversation today. I'm not approaching this as a session where someone knows more than the others, but more like a conversation where we can share ideas from our own experience, and we can, learn from each other. This is a little bit about me. My name is Luz Estela Martinez. I am from Colombia originally. I have been teaching IB, MYP, and DP for 10 years already. I have been very involved in the services action personal project and interdisciplinary projects as a coordinator and as a teacher. And it's an area of the IB that I enjoy teaching. I enjoy to work with the students because not only the content or the subject, traditional subjects, bring development of skills, and I think we all know this. And these type of core projects allow the students to express themselves in a different way, and of course develop different skills. At the moment, I am part of the Global Schools Program Advocates, working in UN Sustainable Development Goals with schools, and I'm having a bit of a break from classroom teaching, and I am doing some educational consulting, exam authoring, and I'm working also as a private tutor. Sorry, I saw the chat. Kaliani, you say for the Global School Program Advocates, can we work with one grade to start with? Yes, you can. You can work as small or as big as you can, or as you want. There is no limit restriction with the number of students or the activities, as long as you are doing the education for sustainable development, that will work. Thank you for your question. And I'm also doing a little bit of, consulting with a colleague, and we found something called Leading Education Hub, and we are working with schools. At the moment, it's kind of informal work, but it's, doing and sharing things with the schools and with colleagues. That's what I'm doing at the moment. So now I want you to use the chat box and to tell me where you are. I guess you are all in India. I am not in India. And who are you? Just to, to know a little bit about you. Hey, Kalyani, MYP coordinator from India. Nice to meet you. Asheka, you don't need a presentation. Everybody knows you. But thank you for presenting yourself. You are kind of a celebrity in this world. Yes, you
My
are.
son calls me Sasta influencer. Sasta means cheap.
Yes, yes, you are. You are. And I'm really happy to having you here. It's an honor to tell you. Maria, chemistry teacher, IB as well. Bahrain, Tanu, concept-based trainer in India. Manju, also in India, PYP teacher. Nice to have someone from outside of MYP and DP. That is nice, but also MYP science. All right. So I forgot to tell you that I am in England at the moment. So it's very early in the morning. It's not even 8 in the morning. But I'm very happy to be here with you guys. All right. So most people from India and someone from the Middle East. Today, I'm planning to cover with you something, as I said in my first slide, instructional rubric model, which is something that has been created as an evaluative and instructional tool. And you will see why later. It's not only the traditional criteria or rubric criteria that we use to assess the student, but this approach is different. It's like swapping a little bit the approach with the students and from us as teachers. Also, how to align rubrics with learning outcomes and exploring strategies for integrating instructional rubrics into the classroom practice. You will see that this type of rubrics is something that you can use practically for everything in your teaching. It's for me that since the moment I discovered this, it has been an enormous help because it made a lot of sense when I learned this, and it gave me a tool that I can use in many different scenarios in my teaching. And I hope you can get that from today. And talking about service as action, we always see the reflection of the students, and the reflection of the students are something like kind of vague reflections because they express, usually they try to say good things about their experiences, but they are not kind of meaningful reflections. They just say, I liked it or I didn't, and that's it. But this is assessing service learning or project-based learning goes well beyond that. It's not if the student or the community liked it or not. Of course they liked because they got some sort of benefit from the activity, but it goes well beyond that. So here, Ellie, this is my daughter, and she was telling us that, yeah, it was a nice activity. It was kind of messy because of the painting, but she liked it. But how meaningful is this? How much can I do with this reflection? And when we see the service learning standards that Kate Thunberger proposed to us, which is something that many schools use, and I quite like, we see that the standards are diverse, are varied. So we see meaningful service, but what is meaningful service? How do we assess? How do we structure? How do we measure? That is the question today, because we have the standards and we know what we should be doing, but how can we ensure and how can we demonstrate as teachers and as students that these standards or these characteristics or these skills have been developed? That is the question today. Sorry, it just keeps going on. Link to the curriculum, partnerships, leadership, success. This is a big, big word, success, self-growth. So if you give these to a student, even if you try to break it down, if you try to put in questions, it's going to be really difficult for, let's say, a PYP student, or let's say MYP1, MYP2, or even for DP students in their CAS projects. For some of them, it's going to be really difficult because the level of thinking they have to do, it's big to get to know how much I applied or how much I achieved diversity in this activity, or how much I develop as a leader. So that's the question, and that's why the rubrics come very handy here. Here is another example. And this was a community project student, and he said, I like my community project because I got to work in something I like a lot. That's nice. Good for you. I'm happy for you. But this is something that I can't measure as a success or as a failure or as a certain development of skills. What did you develop in that activity that you liked a lot? How much you grow in that activity? How much you knew of this topic before you started and how much you know now? So those are the questions that we are usually asking ourselves as teachers. How can I measure this in my students? And of course, it's like this. Sometimes as a coordinator of services action, I feel like this. And you will wonder why. In one side are my students. And I want them to have fun. I want them to enjoy the activity. I want them to find it meaningful, all right? Because it's something extra, because it's not maths or English or science. It's something that some of them see as, all right, this is not core. It's not going to give me any score or any grade. So I don't need to do it. And on the other side is the school. And the school is telling me, you're guiding these students to do project-based learning. You're guiding them, but you need to produce results. We need to tell the parents how much they are growing. We need to tell the board. We need to produce not scores as such, but we need to produce levels of achievement. So I feel like here in the middle. How can I do both things with success? Here is a little bit more of the standards. And if you are an IB teacher and you are doing services action, CAS, project-based learning, IDUs, you know that we have certain outcomes that we have to cover. And in this case, these are the 7 learning outcomes for services action. But again, persevere in action, work with others, consider ethical implications. Those are big things that we can't just give them to the students. We can't just tell me how did you become more aware of your strengths and areas of growth. How is last learning objectives can students address? Yes, Kaliani, that's one of the questions. That's how can we measure that? And as teachers, we are the ones who are supposed to tell the student how. But if we don't know that, it's going to be like, all right, who is going to tell me? How can I break this down? How can I put this in terms that the student can understand? And this is a little bit of related to my previous picture. We want students to develop, to have life experiences, to have metacognition, to be aware of their own learning. We want that in the project-based and service learning experiences. But also the school is asking KPIs. The school is asking evidence of progress. The school is asking levels of achievement. So in one side, we are meant to present results. And on the other side, we want the students to enjoy the activity. So how do we succeed on both sides? This is a real life post from the coordinators group. I think maybe Asheka might have seen it, or if you are part of this group. And one person said a question about service and action in MYP. How do you all track this with the students? And this is the question. That is the nut of the matter. And the MYP says is qualitative. And most of us found vague and not very helpful. So it's basically, it's up to you. All right, it's up to me, that's nice. But when the school is asking me to tell them specific things, these students develop skills in this way, this much, how can I do it? So now I'm going to stop my sharing a little bit because I want to just talk to you for a moment. And I want to ask you that question. How do you measure qualitative things in your classes? How do you do it?
By asking questions, by asking if the students have understood. Miss, are you asking about some strategies?
No, how do you do it, just in general?
Probably, sometimes what I do is we try to figure out the kind of errors they make, if I have to, yes. So whether it's a conceptual error or a procedural error, or what kind of an error you have that gives you that data for them to, is it what you're looking into? So
Yeah.
I am trying to look into what kind of an error a child has made, in the formative assessment that will inform my teaching and learning. So whether it's a conceptual error or it's a procedural error or a strategic error, or it's a careless error or just not being focused. Or
Okay.
error kind of a thing. So then you have different types of errors. So we sit together as a team and try to figure out, what are the errors and things like that. So this is my practice.
Okay. That's nice. It's a nice strategy. And I think we all have done that, isn't it? We all have identified what happened with the student and then sit down with them and say, all right, you were doing really well in these areas, but maybe in these other areas, you need to do this and this and that, 1, 2, and 3. And what about if we start with number 1 or these type of things, isn't it? But it's not always kind of easy. And what I find with qualitative assessment or with formative assessment sometimes is that it's vague. It's kind of in the air. And sometimes it depends on the students. Some students will be really quick to identify their areas of growth. Some students will take more time to say, all right, I don't quite get there. I know I need to improve, but at the end of the day, it's going to be the summative what is going to matter, right? So that's why qualitative assessment is tricky, right? Shall we go on? There is something.
I just want to add something. It is similar to how do we look at affective skills, okay, in terms of ATLs, okay. So according to MYP, you're not supposed to grade or assess ATL skills, but we do so through the strands of the assessment objectives, okay, and we teach them explicitly. Some skills we teach them explicitly, but then there are other skills like, how do I say empathy? Student is proficient or student is a master. So over there, you really need something, how
More
do you say,
concrete.
tangible? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Tangible. That is the word. Because when we have the assessment criteria for any subject, we know level 1, level 2, level 8. We know that. But when it's this type of skills, and the other thing is every single student is developing in their own way. They are having their own journey. We can't expect all of them to be proficient in something because this is so organic. It depends so much on the student. It depends so much on the experience. For some of them, going outside of the school is going to be the big thing. For some of them, doing activities in the school, it's going to be where they flourish. So that's why this is so like untangible. We need to put this in more concrete way. So I'm going to keep sharing my screen now. And then that's where the instructional rubrics come into action. This is a model that is created by Heidi Andrade, and the big thing came out in 2003. And her proposal of these instructional rubrics was to make these more tangible, to make assessing quick and efficient, to provide or to give the teachers something to use with the students, a tool to support the student learning and to make this, as I said before, like a change in the mindset. So now we're going to approach the development of whatever we are assessing in the experience, in the service as action, project-based learning, IDUs experience, like more towards the student development and not the score that they get at the end. And Heidi Andrade, she proposed this. This was one of the examples in their publication. And if you see here, she's making an instructional rubric for a persuasive essay. So something they are learning in English, a course subject, but she proposes this tool or this strategy of the instructional rubrics that is something that you can adapt to anything in the classroom and outside the classroom. As long as you want to assess and evaluate the student in any certain way, you can use instructional rubrics. So here, we're not going to go over the rubric, but here I want to call your attention to two parts. One is the criteria part, and the other one is the levels, what she calls the gradation of quality. I'm going to call it different later, but it's possible to do for something as simple as a written task. Also, when we are talking about development of skills, it's good to use, or I personally use, this model, the Dreyfus model of levels of achievement, and is specifically for level of achievement of skills or skill level. And he proposes 5 levels from novice stage up to expert stage. And he gives us a little bit of description in what each stage is about. Of course, we can get that from the names: novice, very beginner; advanced, not as beginner as the novice; competent is when you can just do activities with confidence. You are confident of doing some things, but still asking questions. Proficient is when you are confident and you can try things by yourself. You risk yourself to get out of that comfort zone and you become proficient. And expert is when you can go by yourself. The teacher is there, the teacher is seeing you, but you can do by yourself. Let's say the level of the DP students at CAS will be either proficient or expert because it is supposed they have been doing service experiences throughout the MYP. So by the moment they get to DP, they should be in these levels of skill development. And here is the rubric. This is the tool. And this tool is divided into 3 main components on main parts, as you depending the way you want to name them. One is the levels of achievement. So here, I'm going to show you an example later. Here is where we are going to say, how are we going to call those levels of achievement? You can use Dreyfus and say novice, beginner, competent, proficient. You can use that, but you can also use some words that are more closer to the students. So here, nothing is set on stone. It's your tool for you to use with your students. So make it as easy to understand to your students as possible. The areas of assessment, these 3 are usually fixed. So we have the construct, the capability we are measuring, and the indicators. What is the construct? It's the big idea. It's like the big frame we are going to place this activity, whatever it is. It can be a written task, it can be an outdoors activity, it can be a awareness campaign in the school. So it's going to be the big thing. Now, what is the capability we are measuring? So within that big service activity, we are going to measure specific things, which later in the example I will show you, I used to put the capability in the capability area, the learning outcome. So what is the learning outcome? I'm going to ask the students to focus in this activity or in this specific rubric. And the indicators are the individual kind of abilities that I want to use to measure the capability. So if you see this, it's going to be from big to medium to small things. To put things tangible, as Asheka said, and concrete, we need to make it in small parts that the student can understand. Usually, here we have the first level, which is insufficient evidence, or we can't just say the student is developing something here or something there. And here are the descriptors. So what I used to do with my students, it depends. If it's an MOP 3, MOP 4, MOP 5, I make this, the levels of achievement and the areas of assessment myself. And then I go out and work the descriptors with the students. This is one way to do. Another way is that you do the whole thing and you share with the students. But involving the students in the creation of the rubric makes that they own it, that they are part of the process, and they know what is expected from them in the long term. So when I finish this activity, I am expected to. And it's a really nice activity to involve them in this. So here is my example. This is an MYP design rubric for the technical skills. And if you have taught design in MYP, it's a really difficult thing to do because we need to measure the technical skills in the moment they are making the product for that unit, but we don't have any rubric. The criteria, the success criteria from the MYP says it's minimal, satisfactory, competent, or excellent. That's it. It doesn't say anything else. So me, as a design teacher, I was struggling with how to measure these levels of skills. So here, this was the big focus of that specific unit. And I was measuring the specific object through different forms. This is the product they are making. And I made some indicators that were related to this specific project they were making. Yeah, Yes, Kalyani, this is criterion C2, making the product, or technical skills. And then I came out with the descriptors. Okay. So this, when I presented this to the students, was a game changer because they knew what excellent technical skills were in that specific product. They knew what was expected from them. It was not only excellent as well made. No, it's excellent in different areas of the knowledge, of the demonstration of knowledge, or maybe satisfactory or competent. All right. So I showed you one example from Andrade for a written text or a written task. And here is a completely different example from another different subject, from design. So this is to show you that the rubrics or the instructional rubrics is something that you can adapt totally, immediately in your teaching. And here is one example for the services action. So here you see the fixed part, the construct is the ability to work collaboratively with others. This is the learning outcome, sorry. I said that it was going to be here, but I put it here in the big thing. And in working collaboratively with others, I'm going to focus on communication, empathy, and negotiation. These are the three things I'm going to focus because I want my students to demonstrate development of these three aspects. And then every indicator in this example, I'm connecting to one of the aspects I want them to develop or I want to measure on them. So verbal expression, teamwork, and interest in others, negotiation, empathy, and communication. And here, because I don't want to use the beginner, novice, competent, I don't want to use that. It's too complicated. Let's say this is an MYP 1 level. So I work with these levels that they understand better. They are either working towards meeting what I expect from them in that specific activity or exceeding. And then I make the descriptors and I use the adjectives. Communicates clearly, confidently, demonstrates leadership consistently, encourages collaboration, actively listens, respects, and integrates. So I decide the levels. With this model, I can sit down with the student and I can tell them, I think you are here in your teamwork. You are working well with your team. You are sharing responsibilities with your team in this activity, but I think you can do better. I think you can go on a little bit more. But what is going on a little bit more is when you become not only a good team member, but a good leader, a good role model in that activity or in that day. So what about next day we do this? You take the lead. What about you share and you show that you can be a good leader? So in that way, the student will think, all right, maybe I can do it. Or maybe it's the student who participated in creating these descriptors and they know that exceeding the expectations is going to be doing something like consistently sharing valuable insights and ideas. So they come to me and say, Miss, what about if I do this and this and that in the next session? Why not? So when they understand in concrete moments, in concrete actions, what is working towards meeting or exceeding, they start saying, okay, I can do it. I can do this. Because they always get, they always want to get, you know, the highest standard. So they want to be here. This is something I did for myself because I was not very sure about the qualitative descriptors for the levels. And here you can see that I am a fan of AI. So I just asked artificial intelligence to give me some levels, some descriptors that I can use with my students. So what is, or what are the words that will define me from novice all the way to expert? So now, again, I will stop sharing my screen and I'm going to ask you to work on a, let's say, case study. I'm going to share I'm going to share a link in the chat. Is this one? So here, in the chat, you have a link to a Google Doc. And if you open that Google Doc, you will see something like this. I advise you to make a copy of the document because this is a shared document. And if you want to work by yourself, maybe you make a copy of the document and you edit and you can just get it, take it. This is the case to work. It's an MOP4 level. It's a services action experience. It's a awareness campaign. And we want to assess the students. You can use both learning objectives or you can use one. Up to you. But in this activity, the students are meant to be developing, undertake challenges to develop new skills and consider ethical implications of their actions. This one is something that for my students is always challenging to measure. How do I measure ethical implications? And here is the template for you to use. What is the idea now? The idea is we have 20 minutes left, so I am very aware of the time. Let's say, let's work on this for 10 minutes. You can work individually yourself, or you can work with a partner, sharing the document with your partner. And let's see what comes out of that in 10 minutes. 5 minutes left. Right, it's 1 minute left, and I think we can just go on with a little bit of discussion. I am interested to know, how did you break down into the capability and the indicators of the learning outcomes? Can someone, or does someone want to share?
Ms. Luz,
So on the sheet, I have added the ones that I have added: understanding of breast cancer, participation in awareness activities, critical thinking and problem solving, and ethical consideration. These are the 4 descriptors that I have added. And I have given you 3 different levels of the rubric. Okay.
But what levels are you using?
Okay, let me check. My 3 levels are beginner, developing, and accomplished.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good for an MYP4. They can understand that. They are able to understand those words.
Yeah. And my indicators are for understanding knowledge of the breast cancer. Okay. Participation in the activities.
Yes, the level of engagement.
Yeah, level of engagement. Critical thinking and problem solving.
Okay.
Okay. Thinking about the potential challenges and limitations of the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, and coming up with new solutions to overcome obstacles.
Yeah.
And the last one was ethical considerations. Now, when I'm talking about ethical consideration, I'm talking about respecting the privacy and confidentiality of the individuals.
So that makes the ethical considerations that is so big and so vague, it makes it like this. This is ethical considerations when you are thinking about the privacy of someone.
Yeah. And to get consent from the participants, informed consent. Okay. And avoiding stereotyping and stigmatizing people who have breast cancer.
Yeah.
And using accurate and reliable information. So
Yeah.
those are the things that I'm looking at in ethical consideration.
I love it. I love it, Asheka. Maybe if I were you, or if I were me myself doing the activity, I will split the critical thinking in one indicator and the problem solving in another indicator. Because that is something that is usually for the students difficult to know where is the limit between one or the other. So I will divide them into two different indicators and prepare descriptors for the two different indicators to really ask them to make or to think themselves, okay, what is critical thinking and what is problem solving?
Yeah. And for the capabilities, I'm looking at self-management and thinking skills.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense for the awareness campaign.
And for the construct, I'm looking at demonstrating a deep understanding of the problem, breast cancer, and the impact. So knowledge and understanding, and being principled. Okay, a thinker, because they are going to analyze information critically and try to solve the problem creatively. And then again, acting with integrity, because that is about ethical consideration. Acting with integrity and honesty, and taking responsibility of their own actions.
Love it. Absolutely. Yes. Totally agree. Totally agree with you. All right. Again, being aware of the time, I would love to hear more people sharing their ideas, but I need to keep going. So I'm just to keep going with the presentation. I hope that you found this activity meaningful and you can just try yourselves for the first time with rubrics, with instructional rubrics, and to see how it goes. Here, I prepared, of course, a rubric to assess this session. And there are 3 levels, this one, because we can say if we were novice, competent, and proficient in the session, in how can we understand the instructional rubrics. It's going to be too long for me to just go on with each descriptor, but because this session is going to be shared, and I think the PowerPoint is also going to be shared, maybe we can do a little bit of self-assessment in where I am in this journey of development of instructional rubrics. And if I want probably to get to the proficient level, if I want to keep learning about this, if I want to keep trying to implement this in my classroom with my students, or outside the classroom as well, of course, and how can I measure myself in this instructional rubric making? There is something I want, it's not in the presentation, but I want to share with you, and it's how I am making the descriptors. And I am using artificial intelligence to make the descriptors. So here, the levels I set myself And here, this part, I set myself. So it's me doing the thinking. Indicators, capability, and construct. I do the thinking here and I establish the levels. But once that is done, I want to show you that I go to artificial intelligence and I say this prompt. Make an assessment rubric with the following specifications. Levels of achievement, and I give the bot the levels of achievement I want it to use and the indicators. And I ask it to make in table format. So this is kind of a use of technology that you can also implement. You can play with technology. Technology is there to serve us. So you can use this and see if you like what the chat tells you, with the bot tells you. In my case, I liked it, but I modified a little bit. Of course, I don't get everything as it comes from the bot. I modified it a little bit, but again, this part and this part is my own human thinking. And I complement this with the artificial intelligence. So this is a tip I'm sharing with you. Maybe you want to use it, maybe you want to try this to make the rubrics for your students. Beyond the service learning, there is a whole world, because you can use rubrics to measure reflections, levels of skill development, to measure impact on the community, to provide evidence that you can connect to scores or hours if you're measuring that, or even the proposal. So you can use rubrics literally across the service learning and the service as action experiences, from the very beginning to the very end. And beyond service learning, I mean, the world is there. You can use that in every single subject for many different things. So it's up to you. It's totally up to you how much you want to use this tool that is available and how much you want to include it in your teaching. I would love to connect with you for after this session. You can find me via email, or you can find me in LinkedIn or Instagram with my consultancy project. And I think that's it for today. It was really nice, a really nice way to start my Saturday, talking about instructional rubrics, which is something I love. And just tell me, what do you think?
So when you gave this task, I used Gemini to
Yeah,
write the
yeah,
answer.
absolutely, absolutely. And I know that you are an artificial intelligence pioneer. So yeah, it's absolutely fine. As long as we complement human thinking with technology, there is nothing wrong with that. And from my perspective, it's our job to teach the students how to use it in the correct and ethical way, right? So we can complement. And once the bot is telling us this, and that, we can just modify and make it more meaningful, more adjusted to our context. So girls, I think we all are women here. Thank you very much for coming today. It was a really pleasant session. I enjoyed it from the beginning to the end. I will share my PowerPoint. The session is going to be shared with you. And anything you need, I am here to have a chat, to have a conversation, and maybe to learn from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Luz.
Thank you.
Especially
Thank
it's
you,
so
Ms.
early in the
Luz.
morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the time for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.